Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. Yes, on this show, we're going to take a look how you can get started with a club like Crystal Palace. I do this getting started shows. I've done a few. I'm doing one for Liverpool. I've done one for Man City and a few other clubs. So for some of the other clubs, it's kind of straightforward. You actually want to try and replicate or at least try and include some of the philosophies of the club in the way you play. And in certain clubs, with certain clubs, it's a different story. It's a question of survival. It's a question of trying to do something with the club that may not necessarily be possible. Uh, with Crystal Palace, we have a club here who's expected to have a mid-table finish. And well, in reality, at the moment, you see Crystal Palace is struggling in the Premiership. So what can we do what can we do with this club to set them off on the right track? The other thing that you want to be aware of is scouting as well, because scouting has changed in FM18. So if you're looking at Crystal Palace, which is a Premiership squad, their packages are UK and Ireland and the youth package. The first thing you want to do when you get into this club is you want to go to your player search over here. That's a few clicks that we're going to have to do, but you want to upgrade your scouting. It's only 60,000 pounds more a year. Please go for the senior package. This will open up a whole host of it basically opens Europe up to you, and this is something that you really need to do if you want to get the best possible players. I wouldn't even think they're the best possible players, but because if you just keep it at England, what's going to happen is if you're looking for players to come in and fill certain slots in your club, you're gonna have issues because you're only gonna have English players. You need the variety, and there's a very significant reason why. When you pick up Crystal Palace for the first time, you only have one striker. Connor Wickham is injured, and he's going to be injured for a really long time, 5 to 7 months, leaving you with only one other striker, Christian Benteke. So the very first thing that you have got to do when you get into Crystal Palace is sort out your striker problem, because you need to get at least another striker into the club. Now, this does not mean that you are forced into playing a specific way, or I'm suggesting that you play a specific way, but the challenge with a club like Crystal Palace is financially, you don't really have a lot to play with. You only have 8 million. So your ability to scout and effectively use whatever limited resources you have to add to the strength in your squad is going to be very important. So you definitely want to be out there scouting, and you're going to have to look out for players that you can bring in who can fill the role of a striker, or at least get somebody on loan from another club to be a striker in your own. Now, the second thing we want to do with a club like Crystal Palace is analyze what we have. Now, I have filters, that rather views that I use in all my games. Now, with Crystal Palace, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at our defenders. Forget the goalkeepers. Let's just stick to the defenders. We're gonna break this into defenders, midfielders, and attackers. Now, honestly, some people want me to go and analyze attacking midfielders and specifically analyze attackers. I'm not gonna go there. Why? I'm only looking at defense and support roles. When it comes to strikers themselves, most people get the strikers sorted. It's gonna be. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out you need this. A striker needs certain attributes. But what we want to do is we want to look at our team and understand what kind of team we have, because sorting out the defensive and the support side is going to be more important. And then once we have a good idea of what they're like, then we can think of a tactic that can fit the team. After we've thought of a tactic that can fit certain ways that we can play, then we can think about the configuration up in front, and then we can start looking at whether we want to play one striker, two strikers, or maybe you want to play one striker with two wide players. So if you're looking at Crystal Palace, the first thing we want to do is take a look at positioning, anticipation, and concentration for our backline. We want to know how intelligent they are at defending, essentially. And we find that the most intelligent person is actually the slowest person in the team. Is Damien Delaney. He's at the ripe old age of 35 years old. He makes for a real seasoned veteran. Unfortunately, playing him for every single day in the Premiership may be an issue. He is reasonably good right now. You could still use him You could in teams against teams that may he can still be an option off the bench if you wanted, but you're not going to look at him for starting any matches. Then we've got other players in the team like we got James Tompkins, whose positioning is 14, anticipation 13, concentration 11. See, I'm only looking at positioning first in my central defenders to see who can play in the centre. Then we land up with a new youngster that they've signed, Jaro Riedewald from Ajax, who was formerly from Ajax. And this player literally has to play because he's a really good central defender, and he's only 20 years old, and he's young, he's upcoming. His positioning is 14, his tackling may be average, his jumping reach is 13, not the best in the world, but give him enough matches, he's definitely going to come along. He can also play as a very good defensive midfielder, so you have options. So when I'm looking at the pack itself, we know that our central defenders, they're not fantastic. We've only got like we put into a position where we'll probably end up having to use Martin Kelly as a central defender. Positioning 14, anticipation 12, concentration 14, determination 14. His acceleration is 12, his jumping reach is 13, not very good in the air. So Scott Dan has to start nearly every single game. His reading of the game isn't fantastic, but his jumping reach is okay. So he has to be paired with somebody whose reading of the game is very, very good. So we don't have many choices. Mamadou Sakho is injured. Until Sakho comes back into the side, looks like Scott Dan, Martin Kelly will be playing quite a lot of the games. I see that Crystal Palace have signed Fosu Mensah. He's going to start every single game because you have here a fullback who can defend and go up. He may not be fantastic in crossing and dribbling, but at least it gives you options. His positioning is okay for a fullback. That's fantastic news. On the left flank, we also have no issues on the left flank. Decent enough fullbacks, not the best. You got Jeffrey Schlupp, formerly from Leicester City. So we've got a few players here that are okay. The key here to remember is at the heart of central defense, until Mamadou Sakho comes back, this team is a bit shaky. Now we sorted that out. Now let's take a look at what we can do in terms of the midfield itself. When we're looking at defensive midfield, how many players can we conceivably put on the pitch who can take the defensive midfielder's cap? Now, Johan Cabaye is not a defensive midfielder. He is out and without a shadow of a doubt, he becomes an attacking midfielder or somebody in midfield and can go forward because of his off the ball, his passing vision and decisions. Then the next player that we're going to be looking at from a defensive point of view, we're going to be looking at other players like James Macarthur. First thing I do, positioning, fantastic, 17. I'm not even going to hesitate. He's playing every single game. Then we got Luka Miljovic, or whatever your name is. Okay, Luka. Okay, there's a song there coming out very soon and I have to stop myself. Okay, Luka. So you've got, here we look at Crystal Palace. They've got solid defensive midfielders. They could put up a team of, they could put up maybe 4 defensive midfielders in this team and get away with it. All right, so we've got a lot of defensive midfielders who are solid. But what I'm getting, the impression I'm getting is I've got a lot of these guys who can take up the middle of the park. I can definitely play with a 3. I can definitely play with a 4 configuration. We can play with a 4-1-3-2. We can play with a 4-1-2 holding, and maybe Cabaye being a bit more attacking in orientation. Still is a very strong possibility. What I do next is I look at the support players to see which of these players I can depend on when it comes to helping the team out when we need to defend. And if I'm looking at most of my support players, the only players that are going to be we can rely on are those in the central positions. Those guys in the wider positions, we can forget all about them. Jason Puncheon, Townsend, Bakary Sakho, I mean, it's natural. Lee Chun-yong as well. All these players, they have some of them have fantastic off the ball. Like Lee Chun-yong is a very good off the ball. Puncheon is very good off the ball. Townsend and Bakary Sakho, they're average. They bring a lot going forward. They don't bring a lot in terms of a defense. Johan Cabaye, he's not too bad. He can definitely he is going to start a lot of the games. He's a central midfielder who can play in an attacking sense. He's got fairly good balance. His first touch, passing, he's actually dribbling, decisions, vision. Okay, I might even use him as a Mazala. So he's not too bad. So we've got players that have a fair bit of talent. But we know that the wider players, they won't be. If you want to use Panchan, Andres Townsend, and Bakary Sako, we know they're not going to be landing anything in terms of from a defensive point of view. Now, finally, we come to the attack itself. The attack is where suddenly we got issues. We don't have. When we start the season with Palace, Zaha and Connor Wickham are injured. Zaha is injured for quite a while, 3 to 4 months. Connor Wickham is out for 5 to 7 months. It's like a long time for these players. Then we got Christian Benteke as the only out-and-out striker in the side, which is the reason why the first thing you want to do with this club, the moment you get into this club, up your scouting budget and go and look for another striker. You need another striker in this club, and it's very important that you find one. Go to your chief scout. Scouting focus, short term, give him a new short term focus, ask him to look for a striker. It doesn't really matter over here. We want to focus on certain attributes, physical attributes. Scouting range, make sure it's keep them focused on a region. I'm going to be focusing on Europe until the age of 33. We will go for all. We want to have the whole database, as many players in the database as possible. So this will result in your boys going out and they will end up giving you scouting reports. Now, eventually, what you want to do is you want to come to this step where you're going to end up having reports coming in with scouting recommendation. They'll come up with numbers like 67, 85%. That's how much they rate those players. Finally, what you want to do is you want to filter through this list. Now here I've got a filter set up which has got acceleration off the ball, work rate, finishing, composure, determination. At the very least, I want to play with those attributes, and these are the attributes I'm looking for. Then you can set a value at most of 5 million. So you filter through the you're gonna be so many. We can't really afford a lot of these strikers, but we want to filter those that make some sense. Now this, at the end of the day, will give you a couple of players that you can look at. You can also go through them and scout in them individually, or you can wait for the scout reports to come in. Ultimately, you will need to do something about the scout reports. When it comes to tactics for Crystal Palace, I basically want to try and play to their strengths, which is a strong presence in the defensive midfield category. They have Yarrow Redewald, they've got Luca, they've got Johan Cabaye, they've got James Macarthur. These are all very, very decent. I mean, they're good defensive midfielders. Then we also want to take advantage of the pace that they can break with on counter attacks in Townsend and Sako. Sako is actually not a bad player. He comes in as a backup player, but he's got decent acceleration and the ability to cross and dribble the ball. Very, very exciting if we can break into space. Then we naturally have other players like Jason Panchan and Lee Chun Yong, who's actually a backup player, but he has some potential. When I'm looking at his numbers, he's a bit getting on in age. He has dribbling, he has finishing. That's the other thing that we are missing in this Crystal Palace side. So when I'm looking at the lineup on the tactic that I was going to use, the first tactic that came to mind was a very unorthodox 4-3-3, which has got basically 3 players backing the middle here, protecting Sako and Fosu-Mensah, forcing teams to, if they come through the middle, they'll be met with quite a strong force here, which allows you to break them apart and then hit them on the break. This is provided teams attack you. Now, if teams don't attack you, then you're going to have an issue. Which is you're gonna have to depend on Benteke to hold up the ball and bring others into play, which gave me the idea of using it either as a target man on support or even as a DLF on attack. So you got these 2 roles that you can possibly be using. Now with the 3 here, you can release Joel Ward. Joel Ward has got good acceleration, decent acceleration. He can definitely deliver the cross. Not bad at tackling. Pretty good at positioning. So he definitely can bomb up the flanks. In order for him to bomb up the flanks, we got to make sure that Townsend plays with the inside forward instructions so he can actually cut inside. But if you look at his PPMs, he cuts inside from both wings anyway. So the player trait suggests that he's going to do this. Whether you choose winger or inside forward, he's just going to do the same thing. Sako, he shoots with power and runs with the ball. very often. So that's good because then we know that he's gonna attack the flanks and instead try and get inside the box. Now, at the back, we're gonna use the basically all simple roles without any PIs. There are no PIs on any of these players except for Riedewald and Kabaye. We're gonna tell them Riedewald to play more direct passes and Kabaye to get further forward and make more direct passes. This pushes Kabaye further up the pitch. Up top, no player PIs have been included on these positions. Now, in terms of team instructions, I would recommend using control and structure with the team instruction of float cross, play wider, use offside, try and prevent short goalkeeper distribution. The reason why we are not using play out of defense is because we want the transitions to be fast. We want the ball to move from defense to attack very quickly. We want it to be fairly wide because we want to encourage balls to go down the flanks. And we want to prevent short goalkeeper distribution because we have the chance of getting these three players involved in some pressing in the opponent's half. We will not use close out much more and tackle harder on any one of them, but we will just use prevent short goalkeeper distribution to get that done. So this is one way of setting up the tactic. Now, the downside of this system is that against teams that are going to be sitting back and backing their defenses, this could be an issue. Why? This is ideally suited to any team that wants to attack you. In fact, most of the goals that I scored using this were all from counter attacks, and it's great and fine when they're attacking into space. The other downside is when you have somebody as a target man on support, sometimes they just hit the ball forward and there's nobody else to receive it, which is one of the reasons why I tend to favor the DLF on attack a bit more than the target man on support, but both can work. The other option is to use a slightly different variation of the tactic. Now, this would be a 4-3-3, and this can help you unlock some stubborn sides. Here we would play with the wingback on support, two central defenders with the wingback on attack. Here the wingback on attack will be told to pass it shorter, few risky passes and stay wider because we want him to explore the full length of the pitch. In midfield, the ball-winning midfielder on support with a DLP on defense and the Mazzala, who will be told to run wide with the ball. Now, this run wide instruction can be removed. You can remove the run wide instruction if you find that he drifts too far. But either way, both instructions can work. Here, the winger on attack is going to be shooting less often and tackling harder. We're going to get the DLF to close down much more and tackle harder. And we're going to get the inside forward to tackle harder as well. This will put a bit more pressure on the opponents. Here, this is going to be a tactic where we work ball into box, push high up, use offside trap, roam from positions, and prevent short goalkeeper distribution. Now, in terms of team instructions, if you want them to cross more and be a bit more safer in your approach, you want to start off like this. Push high up, use offside trap, and prevent short goalkeeper distribution. Now, this is against teams that might be refusing to come out to play with you. Now, here I would just go with such a setup at the start of a game. However, if you do decide to play on flexible or higher, then drop your defensive line to normal. Then you'll only be left with use offside try and prevent short goalkeeper distribution. So if you wanted to start a game, I would go and control flexible, start with these two shots first. If I find that I want to stretch the team, I want to release these players and I want them to, basically go one-on-one with players as much as possible, then I will go control structured, then I will push the defensive line higher, and I will then start with these instructions. And if I wanted to, the reason why I am hesitant about using work ball into box in most cases is display. Can Benteke actually do it? If you find that Benteke can actually hold up the ball and get others involved into play, and you want to park and you want to camp in an opponent's half, then work ball into box becomes an option. But these are all instructions that you have to use after a few games when you're used to your players, because you wouldn't want to begin a game and then start popping in team instructions straight away. Now, in terms of who plays where, Riedewald has got passing of 15, decisions of 14, and vision of 15, which makes him an ideal candidate for the DLP position. Then we've got Milovic, however you pronounce his name. He's got tackling of 14, work rate of 16, positioning of 14. His anticipation, his composure, his determination all make him a pretty good candidate for the ball-winning midfield on support. Kabai can play the role of Mazzala easily. His first touch is 15, passing is 16. His flair is a bit on the low side for a Mazzala at only 12. His composure is 13, and his off the ball is 16. Makes him okay, I guess. I mean, there isn't anybody else in your team that can play as a Mazzala. But I want to use the Mazzala in this particular case because he can explore the half spaces. So these are two of the tactics how I would set them up. Now, in both tactics, you do not want your keeper to be passing it to the fullbacks. You just want to let your keeper play his normal game and just remove all instructions. It is especially the case for this tactic. For this tactic, you do not want your keeper to play it back from the back. You just want your keeper to hoof the ball up. So every chance he gets, let the keeper play it long. Let him play it over the top of defenses so that Benteke can get to the ball. Now, the downside of this is this tactic is going to generate you lots of low possession numbers. It's going to give you like 35 to 40 possession in terms of possession percentages. If you want the numbers to go higher up, then I would suggest asking your keeper to play from the back. But then that's going to remove a bit of the bite from your tactic, because what we want here is the ball to get to Benteke. We want Benteke to hit the ball down, get Kabai into play, and then immediately release Saku. Some of the goals that I've scored in this tactic have really depended on getting these kind of transitions to happen quite quickly. Playing with Palace is not going to be easy. It's going to be very challenging, and I hope that this video has helped you. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me. You can always look me up on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank all my patrons for making this kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care and have a good one. Bye-bye.